All right, welcome to another Koenchi-shan Reviews. And in this video, finally, after talking about it for months and months and months, I am going to cover Mokuzo Mortaru no Okoku, or the Wooden-Mortared Kingdom. This is Garo Magazine's 20th memorial issue, or they might want to say anniversary issue. This was released in 1984, so of course, Garo began as a monthly magazine in 1964. This is a beast of a book. First of all, this is the box it came in. Famous box. This is kind of the Garo Bible for many Garo heads and Garo collectors, right? And the book contains over 80 stories by mangaka, over 1,200 pages, and has numerous essays and other things thrown in there, some adverts, some photos, but we will focus on the manga, of course, today. But before we get into this, first a couple things. First of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of background info on Garo. So if you're not familiar with Garo, this is an early 1966 December issue 28 release, so they've been around for a couple of years at this point, so you can get an idea of what Garo was. Then we're not going to go through the whole Wooden-Mortared Kingdom because that would take probably 10 hours. It took me the last 10 months to read it, trying to read a few stories a week. So rather than doing that, I have selected about 10 of my favorite stories from it to introduce to you. But before we do that, let's take a look at Shukan Manga Garo from 1966. So, Shukan Manga Garo was started in July of 1964 by Nagai Katsuichi with the help of Shirato Sanpei, who we actually have a story, Senso or War, by him in this 1966 December issue. This is volume 28, so they'd been around for about 2.5 years at this point. Of course, Shirato is famous for Kamui-den, or The Legend of Kamui, which is probably his most popular series. And he was featured in Garo for prominently for years and years and years. So he's an integral part of the Garo landscape. In fact, the title Garo itself is based on one of his samurai characters from ninja characters from one of his stories. So he is a core member of the Garo community, but this issue that we have here also has some other famous people in it, such as Mizuki Shigeru. So I'll go through and show you a little bit of the inside of this so you can get an idea of what Garo is all about if you're not familiar with it. And to be honest, I am not a specialist in Garo at all, or gekiga at all, but I do have a lot of works by artists that were prominently featured in Garo over the years. Everyone from Shirato Sanpei to Tsuge Yoshiharu, his brother Tadao, and Hinohideshi, Hanawa Kazuichi, just numerous famous mangaka and gekiga mangaka were featured in Garo over the years. Garo really was popular among leftist students, people who were anti-establishment, people that were artists, were going against the grain of mainstream nation-building culture of Japan in the 1960s. And unfortunately, it went out of business in 2002. But for collectors, it's still one of the biggest monthlies that are collected among fans of these artists. This first story here, so we have the contents here. This first story, that's really cool. A little bit hard to read, the red on blue, but it still is really cool. This is Mizuki Shigeru, and this is Kaiki Shinincho, or Bizarre Book of the Dead. You can see it's by Mizuki Shigeru and Mizuki Pro Studios, his production team. We have a young man digging through some used books, something I'm very familiar with, when he runs across this Book of the Dead. These aren't just any used books. These used books happen to be from a temple a temple storage space that was cleaned out, and this old man is selling all the books. And then the story ensues from there after he breaks the lock on the book. Not as wild as Evil Dead, but it is a ghost story. I'm not going to go through all of these because that would just take too long, but we will just skip ahead here. So that was about a 100-page story, which is pretty cool. It's pretty long. Then here we have an essay by a reader, an essay by the editorial team, Garo advertisement. This here is an essay about the Nopera Po, it says here, or Nopera Bo is the more typical spelling of it, which is a yokai or bakemono, a ghost. That one ghost with no face. It typically seems to be a woman in a kimono with no face. And there's an essay here on that. Some adverts for other Mizuki Shigeru stuff. We have just some one-panel comics here. And then here, as I mentioned before, Tsuge Yoshiharu was a big contributor to Garo as well. This is Teijo, or Handcuffs. And this is a kind of a thriller. Starts off with the police are searching. 3 men killed someone. The police are searching for the 3rd man still. They've already caught the 2. And he is on the run, and there's a detective after him. And thriller, more of a thriller, suspense thriller, not really crime, not really horror. Then, moving on, we have Osen. Osen means pollution or contamination, by Kusunoki Shohei. He did a lot of stuff with Garo and Calm magazine. Of course, Calm was run by Tezuka Osamu. And he contributed a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, this poor guy died at only 30 years old from heart failure. You get the idea. And here we have Tsurita Kuniko's Kona Hanashi, maybe like this story or this talk, that story, that talk. Much more cartoony than a lot of the stuff that you see. But Garo did a good job of putting variety in there, not just, of course you have the mainstays like the Shiratos and the Mizukis and the Tsuge Yoshiharu and Tadao brothers, but you also have a lot of debut artists, which we're going to see when we take a look at Wooden-Mortared Kingdom here in a moment. And then in the back here, we have Shirato Sanpei's Senso, or War. The first chapter is Blonde-Haired Jessica. Concerning already. Hate to see children in war. And this is a war action humanity story. Well, I'm not flipping through everything as well so that I don't, really spoil too much for you. And then when we get through those, that's all the manga in here. And then in the back here, we do have some adverts for of course, Mizuki, Shirato Sanpei, who are huge contributors. And on the back cover as well, we have more Shirato Sanpei. So you can see how involved he was with Nagai after forming Garo. So that is the 1966 December issue. Let's go now and take a look at Wooden-Mortared Kingdom. All right, let's get into Wooden-Mortared Kingdom. First of all, inside of the box, we have this little loose leaf booklet. This is just a bunch of short essays by prominent writers and critics, a few mangaka, film directors, just everyone on how Garo has influenced their life. A big theme in Garo over the years has always been supporting Garo, how great Garo is. Please buy Garo. Do anything to support Garo artists because it has really always struggled. Although it did reach around 80,000, circulation of 80,000 in the 70s, it never really did excellently to the point where, you know, they were raking in money or anything like that. So it was always a struggle. But for the artists, for the counterculture, for everyone involved, readers, it was really a passion. So lots and lots of people have contributed to this little booklet, which was, I don't know if it was an afterthought, but maybe, you know, something to promote it a little bit. So that was a little bit of an extra in there. And then here we are with our massive 1,200 plus pages of Wooden-Mortared Kingdom. So I'll show you a little bit of the beginning first. There we go. Just some info on it. This is just kind of giving you the background, how they selected the manga in here. Of course, they couldn't put long series in like Legend of Kamui, something that was, you know, I don't know, maybe there's 25 tankobon in that series or something like that, or long Yoshiharu, Tsuge Yoshiharu stories or something. So what they did is selected one-offs, anything that, and from people that contributed over these first 20 years, which we'll take a look at. But they just kind of explained that point and how they're just save space, how they chose mangaka based on how well they fit the feeling, the vibe of Garo. And these are all 80 plus essays, the artists and the titles. And we start off, of course, with Shirato Sanpei. This is Zashiki Warashi. I guess Zashiki Warashi is kind of a protective household deity or god from the Tohoku region. So you can imagine it means something like protector. And this is a tale of an old ninja who is really too old to be an effective ninja anymore. And God, it was the first thing I read. I read this back in November of last year. But I believe that the clan decides to kill him because he has aged out of his profession. However, as protector, he must protect something or someone. So in the story, I like the diving, the swooshes. In the story, he meets up with a boy. Here we have their encounter. And the boy has no father, just a mother. So the aging or aged ninja becomes kind of his protector. Fighting a bully at school. Yeah, you get the picture. So, of course, I had to cover Shirato Sanpei because, well, he's one of the original founders of Garo, and the name Garo is based on one of his ninja characters, so it's got to be in there. All right, let's move on. This is another story that I really liked. This is Kao no Magata Otoko no Monogatari, or the story of the crooked-faced man. This is by Hoshigawa Teppu. This is a strange one. It starts off with this man. He's depressed because of his looks. He's got this kind of crooked head. He wants to kill himself. He talks about how people make fun of him, about how he's turned down by the love of his life because she cannot be with a man with a crooked face. How another man comes along and takes her. And in a jealous fit of rage, he murders the man that takes his woman by stabbing him in the back. And then he goes off to commit suicide, or to suicide himself, I think is the better way of putting that. Which leads to him having a normal face. I really like that. That was pretty impactful. I like this one too. Mahiru, or Midday. This is by Watari. I don't know how to read this. Nijuyon is 24, but I imagine it's something like Nijuyo, or some play on the numbers, but I don't know the exact reading of his name. I tried to look up some information on him. Some of these older authors, mangaka, have disappeared from record. You can't even find them on wiki or otherwise. You, where are you? She's yelling at him. Brace yourself, calm yourself. The war is over. All of the people in the nuclear blast are gone. You need to eat for energy. So you can see this short story here. 1977. I mean, there's a large anti-nuclear movement at that time. Maybe reflecting on those people that came back from World War II with disabilities, and definitely PC... what do I want to say? Mental disorders. Okay, moving on. Sorry about that. Tsuge Yoshiharu. So, as I said, he and his brother Tsuge Tadao were also frequently featured in Garo. And this is one of my favorite stories by his. This is Chico. It's the name of a parakeet. And we have a mangaka here, which is ostensibly Tsuge Yoshiharu himself, and his relationship with a parakeet. This is his wife. And here enters the bird. This probably was one of the most impactful stories for me in this book. I really enjoyed it. All right, let's move on. Skipping ahead. Although Hinohideshi made his debut in Calm in 1967, Tezuka Osamu's monthly magazine, he still was featured in Garo from time to time. This story is called Doro Ningyo, or Mud, the mud doll. You can imagine. A doll made out of mud. This story is heavily influenced by the pollution issues of the time of like modernization in Japan here. So as you remember, in the mid 50s, you had the Minamata incident, right? The mercury poisoning in Western Japan. And this was released in 1968, I believe. So maybe May 1968. And there were still people suffering from the byproduct of industrialization in Japan via pollution, people getting cancers, babies born with deformities. And we can see that this is very much based on that kind of concept. You see these children, some of them are missing eyes, the polluted industrial town. This theme comes up a lot in Hinohideshi's works. The children are poor, the children seem hungry, yet they're still compassionate enough to care for a dog, a blind dog at that. Pollution ravages the city. It is the work of adults. So they're here building a mud person or mud effigy that represents adults. Here we have it. Which they beat to the ground with sticks. I love early Hinohideshi stuff. I mean, I love all Hinohideshi stuff. I'm a pretty big collector. But, and one day you will see a full profile vid from me on Hinohideshi, but it will take me probably another couple years to get around to it because there's so much of his stuff that I still need to read. There we go. The suffering of children by the decisions of adults. I like this one too, but I did not bookmark it, so let's move on. You see all kinds of stuff in here, right? All right. Tako ni natta shonen, or how could we translate it? The Boy Turned Octopus? Not octopus. Sorry, not that taco. Taco means octopus or kite. There's a kite in the background here. The Boy Turned Kite. That would be funny if he turned into an octopus. But much better turning into a kite. So this is the story of a boy. In the beginning, he and his sister are flying a kite, which they really enjoy. He and his brother do not get along. At school, oh wait, here. This is not the brother. Sorry, it's been a while since I read this one too, guys. He's at school, he's being bullied by a school bully. The bully beats him, he tries to fight back. He's thinking back to the kite flying with his sister. He's extremely poor. He gets bullied because he's got old clothes and he's dirty and he's got no money. Still being bullied by the school bully. And after fighting back, the teacher comes in and catches him on top of the bully. And the teacher strikes him. He is embarrassed and dejected and thinks about that kite. Makes a resolute decision. Dreams of freedom from this horrible world and runs and jumps out the school window where he becomes a kite. But I think he really just dies. Someone else you wouldn't expect to see inside this Garo is Hanawa Kazuichi, Eroguro artist, famed alongside of Maduro. And I was surprised to see, I didn't know that he had released in Garo, but this is Nikuyashiki, or I don't know, meat room. Classic Hanawa styling. There's always murder. There's always torture. Not always, but often. And in this one, cannibalism. So that was a surprise. We are skipping ahead here. There's a lot of good stuff in here, but just for efficiency's sake, There's a little flip through of a little stuff we're skipping here. Harishi no Koto. This is a story about Harry. Kabutomushi. Kind of a bug, a beetle. One of those big beetles, right? I just love the artwork in this. I was trying to decide which stories to choose from this. And so I just kind of sat and thought about which stories do I remember? Which impacted me enough that I have a memory of them? Because when you're reading, 80 stories from one book, some of them get kind of lost in your memory files, lost in the mix. But this one definitely stood out to me. The boy and the beetle traveling together. Yaha! I love the beetle dance. Dancing at the moon. And then time for the beetle to leave in his spacecraft. Another thing that Garo had a lot of was sexy or sexually driven manga, which was, it's not like there's a lot of other weeklies doing that at the time. And then they also tackled a lot of social issues. So this story really stood out to me. It's Gyoza Teishoku no Hiru, or I don't know, the Gyoza Lunch set afternoon. It's a simple story about young salaryman. They have limited time at lunch, can't be late, got to get back to work. And he goes out for a Gyoza lunch. And while at the Gyoza restaurant, which is just packed with salarymen, right? Salarymen and workers and the staffer men. And in walks a beautiful lady. This throws a serious monkey wrench in the efficiency of this restaurant, I guess. Because women are not supposed to be going out eating alone. What are they? What's she thinking? And this woman is very strong. I wouldn't say opinionated because she just speaks her mind. That doesn't mean opinionated. She's speaks freely. And it's the story of the reaction of the people, the men in the shop, to a woman being in there with them, which is weird. She tells one man it's rude to smoke while others are eating. Good looking Gyoza Lunch, though. People murmuring and talking. Sometimes semi-harassing. I should sit down and reread this one. This one was good. She chats a little bit with the young salaryman. He has to hurry up and eat, though. Can't be late back to the office. And then at the end, she's driving out here in her chauffeured vehicle and says something to the effect like, I'll tell my husband about it. He was just amazed. He was enthralled with the beautiful lady that had the gall to go out for a gyoza lunch. All right, moving on. This is Modern Lovers. I don't know exactly how his name is read, if it's Okuhira or... and then Ira is his first name, but there's a few ways to read his last name. But I think this was released in 79, but it's very 80s style. So just that border between late 70s, early 80s of art style. And Modern Lover is a tale of a man who goes to a psychiatrist because he is in love. He's having relationship problems. And he has to speak with a psychiatrist about it. And then the psychiatrist says, we all have relationship problems. Take a look at this. This is my wife is a washing machine. And in this story, all of the men are in relationships with machines. There's even a radio announcement about the new machines that will be released into the market for men. Kind of, you can imagine something like a AI doll here in the foreseeable future that men would prefer or settle with instead of a real human. This story also, we're getting towards the end here, guys, but just a couple more things really quick. This Taikutsu Nahi, or The Boring Day, by Izumi Nonoe. I could not find any information on Izumi here, but this story is awesome. It's about all of the Ultraman characters on a day with no action. Everything that they do during that day. 7 is in here. There's a couple other. We've got 3 of the Ultraman characters here. One cool thing that I never mentioned before, the first page, it always has some background on the mangaka, and then a comment from the mangaka about Garo, which is always something like, "Gambare, do your best," or "You are so important to me," or "You're important to the culture," or something like that. But this is a fun story about some Ultramans, we'll say, in their spare time and on their day off, doing simple things like watching TV, brushing their teeth, playing guitar, laying around, reading a book, doing exercises, maybe fly out into the sky a little bit, make a little appearance at the Tokyo Tower. And the next thing you know, you're back home in bed. All right, one more here, guys. Gals, everyone out there. This was another one that kind of stuck in my memory. This is Hoto Hoto na Nangi na Papa to Mama. I don't know. I was trying to think of how to translate this, like the extreme difficulties of Papa and Mama. It's about this boy who learns how to wank. Pretty exciting stuff when you're a little boy. Here's him and his friend. They're checking out a sexy magazine. They get some Woodrows here. They have to stuff those Woodrow Wilsons between the mattress, I guess, the bed mattress. Being a young kid is wild. He is all kinds of fired up. But the story is also about the guilt that young boys feel during this transitionary period of their life. And the children's confusion of this change with their body. And then here, his mother walks in on him. So this is where all chaos ensues. She tells him how unhealthy it is that this is going on. Then at night they're awakened because there's a noise in the room, and of course the wife sends the husband off, and he catches the boy doing a little wanky spanky in bed. And he tells him what a disgrace he is and how he's a bad name for the family. Just poor little dude, man. Ties him to the bed so that he cannot wank. And that is how it ends. All messed up, thinking that he's awful, disgusting person tied to the bed. All right, here, let's get out of the manga section here for a second. And I'll just show you really quickly a couple things that they have in the back here. So there's the end of it. And then here we have some photo essays. Love looking at old photos from the 60s, 70s, 80s. The old chopsticks up the nose, or pencils up the nose. And we have a bunch of essays in here as well. I read a few of the essays. Most of them are just about Garo, the influence of Garo, how much they respect Garo, a little bit about some artists from Garo. And they tend to be by critics and writers and celebrities, personalities. Some good illustrations there. Advertisement for, again, Shirato Sanpei. If you're going to help found it, I guess you get some free or very cheap advertising. Mizuki Shigeru's Yokai Hyakumonogatari, or the 100 yokai stories. You can see there's quite a bit of essays. I tried to read a little bit of all of them, and I read a couple of them all the way through. I do like these old adverts. It's a Seiyu mall advertisement, Seibu department store. What else do we have here? Some sort of supplement. A drink. A hot water maker for heating water, Parco. Morning comic. Some books and stuff. Yeah, it's always cool. This, although creepy, very early Araki. You know, Araki, the erotic photographer. This is shoujo seikai, so it's photographs of very young girls. You must admit that during this period, a lot of this led to this lolicon or Lolita complex that is pervasive in Japan, and I'm sure Araki did not help, although I do like Araki in some senses as an artist. Man, some of it just goes a little bit too far. Now, I do not think some things like that contribute to culture well, but that's just my opinion. Still a fantastic artist. More adverts. And getting to the end, a Mandarake ad for Nakano Broadway. Isn't that cool? Man, still go there every week. And these are all kind of congratulatory messages on your 20th anniversary from Mandarake and other publishers and other companies. And there we have it, guys. That was Garos. Mokuzo Mortaru no Okoku, or the Wooden-Mortared Kingdom. Thanks to everyone who subs, likes, and shares. Sorry, I must be a little bit tired filming this straight through, but you are the ghostess with the mostess. I'm looking forward to doing some more videos for you. I think the next one is going to be my Hama Shinji profile video, unless I get hung up on the research yet again. But I've read through a lot of his stuff, so it should be coming out here really soon. And again, to all those people out there that follow, and support the stuff that I do, thanks a lot. If you want to get deeper into it, join us in our Discord. There's a link here in the YouTube. And I look forward to making another video and hanging with you guys next time. Until then, mata ne.